Hey there guys, we're just getting this thing going right now, and we've got a few new things. First of which, I think you can tell, we have ourselves some Baratheons. And right here we have Alistair Florent, or Florent, whichever way you want to pronounce that. He's one of the 4 that we're going to work on here. So we've got right here, next NCU, I'll try and get, there we go, get a little less of the shininess there. We got Renly and Stannis also. Got the reference pictures in the corner, so it'll be a little bit easier for you guys to keep track of what it is we're doing. Now on Stannis here and Renly, we'll see what we can do with cloak freehand, and we're going to try some other new stuff in the form of some of the new ProAcryls here, especially these transparents, but there's also some new regular colors. I want to try out these to see how they compare to the contrast paints. These are fairly basic here because they're just trying to follow the primary colors. So we'll use these things. We've got the contrast paints, you see them over here in the little bins. We are going to put these, I think, out on the palette to start with, just so you can tell the difference, because it might get confusing if you see just row after row of these little pots right here. So I'm going to swing over here, make sure that we've got our little chat thing here, so I can see who's in the house. I'm just going to move this over a little bit, so just give me a little bit chance to do this. And move some paints off to the side here. We'll move this to our normal palette position right about there. So what we want to do, we're going to maybe grab ourselves another one of our little paint pots here, and let's see, because I want to again be able to compare stuff like this transparent yellow. I'll be able to directly compare that to, say, something like that. I want to think that the Iandan yellow, yep. We want to be able to contrast it directly to that. So these right here, we got these on Amazon. Oh, it's just pennies on the dollar, really. It does not cost very much at all. Really, really inexpensive. I think you'll find that they're well worth it. You know, I used to use the water bottle caps. There we go. There's one. What we're going to do is something like this. Just going to pour it right in there. This way. Don't have to worry about spilling this, because that's $8 right there. You don't really want to be dumping that on the ground too much. We'll shove him right over there. And if you just straight away, and I want to get over here, make sure that I can see if people are saying something here. Let's just throw this right away, right out here on the palette, see what we get. So you can see a big difference. Now this might almost be sort of a semi-opaque right here. What we're looking to do is also mix these with the regular paint, just like we've done in other situations. So let's try the transparent orange, like so. Now I would guess that a combination of these two right here. Let's try these two together. And see, that starts to yield something that's a little bit more like our Iandan yellow. So probably a little more of the orange in there, like so. Oh, what the heck, let's just put it somewhere. I just want to see what the heck happens with it. So see, that's relatively transparent. That is your ProAcryl. Now let's try your GW right next to it, and they are pretty much the same. Pretty much the same. Let's take away some of the excess here. I just dried out the brush, taking away some of the excess. So that tells me that the transparents can pretty much do the same thing. They got the capillary action. Oh, and if you'll interested in price, this is the one time I know that these are at, what, 17 mil, about half the price ish, 60% of the price maybe of the contrast paints, and well, depending on where you are, easier to get maybe. So we're just gonna continue for the heck of it here. I'm gonna go with the yellow. So this is the not the contrast yellow, but this is the ProAcryl yellow that we're using right here. And you can see it gives you a nice little tint. We're taking advantage of our shading here that we did with the Stano-Res primer. It's just very simple, 3/4 colors of primer. See, we sprayed down over the top to get that. Now let's try maybe some of the purple here and some of the red. So I think, yep, I've got transparent purple right here. Now I may need to add some blue to this. Now let's just throw this out right now. I'm thinking I'm going to throw some of the transparent blue out here. So that is right here. Now as far as you're looking for a GW equivalent in the contrast, that would be the Shyish purple. Now here's another thing too. You can see that these stay a little bit more, I don't want to say bulky, but they have a little more thickness to them. They don't run. The contrast paints get all over the place there. So let's mix these two together. I'm going to make sure that brush is clean of that yellow. And now let's get into our purple. Let's get into our purple mixer. And I'm pretty sure that mixing these with yellow is not a problem. So we're going to grab, I'm just going to go Ursura because I don't quite really know how to pronounce that. So let's see what we get. Let's see what we have here. That is not too shabby. It's essentially doing the same thing the contrast paints do. That is really, really similar. Is this not what most people do with their contrast paints? Now, what they probably don't do is mix them together like we did here to make this more bluish purple. And speaking of which, I'm going to seek out the Shyish purple, see what, here it is. So we're just going to throw a little bit of that just next to what we're doing here. And you can see that's got a lot more red in it, but that's okay. We want to get a little variety, so we're combining the two here. Actually, just thinking of the ProAcryl, it does really the same thing, and it seems to dry nice and matte. So this, I thought this might be an interesting experiment. Now let's go back to our ProAcryl here. Just do a little bit of each. Now one thing, I tried to get, was it Wildwood, I think? Tried getting that, didn't see it anywhere. So absolutely nowhere, not even, I think GW had it. So that's another thing too. If you just can't get your hands on certain colors, well, okay, no Wildwood. I'm thinking transparent brown and transparent black. So I'm gonna go back to the Shyish purple here. Let's go with a little bit more blue. Now this has some water in it. Has some water. Let's not get too crazy here so we don't get some watermarks. What I'm going to do is, as I let that dry, we are going to grab our glove here so there's not quite so much of the lights bouncing off my thumb there. So you can see we got some blue here in this end, and then it gradually forms a little bit more in the way of purple. So I think I sort of like it. I think it's perfectly fine to use either or. Now we'll see what happens when we mix them with the actual ProAcryl paints, because those are very thick They're also very matte. Now let's take that transparent black that we talked about. Okay. Throw that over here. And we're also going to take the brown. I think that's right here. Oh, that's the purple. There we go. So I'm going to grab this transparent brown here. Just trying to keep the labels as clean as I can for right now. So if there's a slight delay, that's just me cleaning up the labels. There's your brown. So that's got a lot of redness to it. That's interesting. Now what I am seeing is that you got to be careful because you're getting some of that going off the top. I think that's why I ended up with paint all over my glove. So all I'm going to do is mix some of this together, see what we get in terms of a dark brown. So I'm just taking the brown and the black, mixing them together. I'm going to move this over even more. Here we go. 1 second. The windows are just there we go. Now I can see what you see, and here we're going to use it on our base, because what I am going to try and do is a little bit of maybe black marble with some of the stag iconography on it for your Baratheons there. So I'm just pushing this around. I can see right away that the black transparent that's intense. I mean, wow, that's got some coverage to it. That has really got some coverage to it. Let's do that. I'm just going to do that across the bottom of the base here too, just so we have a better idea of what is light and what is dark. So that again is just the black and the brown mixed together. I'm going to show you this. So for some of the units, get him out of the way here. So here's a movement tray for one of the units, and you can see that we've drawn out, and this is the size of the movement tray, and that has been basically transferred. You can see we used the graphite trick to transfer that pattern. See, we've got some cracked earth going in some of the crevices. That's part of my army painting series there. I believe that is series 12. Actually, I have 2 series running at the same time, on the Mountainsmen and now on the Baratheons. So I need to see my reference picture here real quick, so let me move this over a touch. There we go. It looks like it's kind of a bluish black cloak, so I'm going to grab a little bit of blue here, and we're going to put that right here. See what it does. This is, as you know, this is usually not the way that I work, but we did all that stuff with the contrast paints there. So now we went from blue, mixing in some of the brown. I'm just going to let this sink down into those crevices. You can see that it makes just as much of an impression as the contrast paints did. Here, let's just get some of that in here into the crevices again. We're just going to let gravity do its thing. You notice we sort of pull it down into those crevices, not letting it pool too much. We watch that. We kind of monitor that a little bit, see where it's trying to pool more or less. Now let's get some red out here, and here is transparent red. So just throw some of that over here. Now you can see that's a really bright, intense red. Yeah, okay, so this is the first thing I see, is that you got this going on. Every time I close one of these things, that stuff starts shooting out the top of the bottle. We'll see if it keeps doing that. These are brand new bottles. I just opened them. There could be a little bit of that contents under pressure sort of thing. So what are we doing here? We're mixing again. some of the brown, some of the black with the red. Let's get his tunic right here. I need me a little bit more of that brownish color in here. Like so. We can do more glazes of this over the top. I'll just go right in here. So this does, let's see, what would this be? The bloodletter red that I've essentially mixed here. That would be your main difference too, is that you'd have to mix these, because I think there's 8 of these, whereas your contrast paints, I believe, well, there's 34, but that may also include your contrast medium, so maybe there's 32 original ones. So let's get that red in here too, and also keep an eye over on the chat there. So I like, see how that, yeah, there's no watermarks there. See, like here, if there's just too much, I can go in here and grab some of that. Now let's try, now that we've got this a little bit drier here, we need to give her some red here, and we're gonna mix some here. That's a nice red. That was actually it's a little bit of the contrast in, along with a mix of the red and some of our brown. Let's get a little more of the red in there. So it looks like you can mix the ProAcryls and the contrasts if necessary. Add a little bit of brown to this. A little bit of brown, just to darken that. So this, once again, I'll just kind of repeat this again. This is not my usual way of working. We're trying to get a little bit of a comparison of these two materials, the transparents from ProAcryl to the contrast paints. You've seen me already compare the, oh gosh, what is it, the Green Stuff World Intensity inks to these. Now we're taking black and the blue, mixing them together. Let's looking to make a little bit of a grayish color here. Gonna water that down a touch. Just doing the rocks over here. And then we'll start to throw in some of that brown as we get down towards the ground here. Remember, the blue and brown, you're going to get essentially black, or at least a dark gray. Again, looking, grab a little bit of the brown there. So I'm trying to do multiple things at once. Or show you the new Baratheons, of course, but also give you a little glimpse at some new paints and how they compare to other stuff that you've seen me work on. Now I will put some links in the description to other live sessions with the contrast paints, maybe even links with stuff that's just the ProAcryl paints as well. Now what color are we looking at for Stannis here? Looks like he has a pretty dark, fairly dark robe there, so we are going to go dark on that. Gonna actually mix a little blue, because that's what it seems to be, and we'll go straight away right into the cloak from here. Maybe grab a little more black here and there. He also has that burgundy colored cloak, or a tunic right here, or a jerkin, I guess. Yeah, that's what it might more be in this instance. And like I said, if I don't see somebody popping up into the chat or whatever right away, it's just I'm kind of focused on this, and I'll get to any questions as soon as I can. Just there's a little more of the blue, just working our way down this cloak, get a little more of the the black in here. And the interior of his cloak also seems to be really, really dark there, so we're gonna go pretty heavy with the brown and black in the inside here, in the interior. Like so. That pretty much takes care of your cloak there. Looks like it also has, I'm going to do the sleeves also with the black here. You can see I'm spacing out these layers, washes, glazes, whatever term it is that you're most comfortable with, because now he's not wearing gloves. Not wearing gloves. Now what I'll do is I'll let the robe in this dry, and then we'll get to some of those burgundy parts that I was talking about before. And let's just get a little of that dark down in there too. We'll leave that go. Now I don't really have references for down on the bottom. The character card just doesn't show that. But in the meantime, I got other things I can do, like bases. That's one of the reasons why I almost always have, well, I can almost kind of have to have more than just one figure. It's very, very, very inefficient for me to just paint one figure at a time. Incredibly inefficient. It also is a way to keep things from getting static, getting boring. How many times, I always say this all the time on the army painting series, how I see people just giving up on their painting. They just they're so bored with it, they just don't want to do it anymore. Part of it has to do with they're doing their one army project and it just sort of drags on, and they get bored with it, and they just don't want to paint anymore, because it's supposed to be a fun thing, and when it ceases to be fun, you're just a lot less likely to do it. That's just human nature. Now I think we can, here, let's look and see. We've got an armor on him. I'm not going to do it that greenish color, but we're maybe not necessarily going to do a sky earth on it. So I am looking to, actually here, let's grab a little bit more of the transparent blue. Now we're going to see, does it really just kind of shoot all over the place? Let's see what happens when we close this. And maybe that was just, like I said, contents under pressure. Maybe that's what caused it to kind of shoot all over the place. Let's go. Now I'm going to tone that down. So I'm going to grab me some of the black and brown. Just look into, there we go. That is, see how it's kind of a bluish gray now? That's what I was looking to do. So sometimes you have to, you're working with a color and you say, whoops, that's not quite right. Make a little alteration to it, because we can go lighter after this, no problem. And because the color was mixed, we may get a little variation too along the way. Here, let's grab a bit more of this. We'll go down his other arm. And I'm going to say that he's got metal bracers here. Again, it's just, now I can, they are, looks like they are metal. Looks like they're metal. So we'll go with that. And we've got some metal down here to take care of. We got a sword blade we're going to hit real quick. Then back to some tunic. And we'll just go straight down the armor here. And I was like, aha, there we go. Hey, Sharpies. Sharpie's models says painting up units of skeletons for own undead army was a real pain, but worth it in the end. So much bleach bone and flesh wash. Blown? Woof. Beached bone? Well, I suppose you can have beached bones. Well, let's see. My Tomb Kings, I guess to try and avoid that, well, they were a Zinch-tainted Tomb King's army, so there was pretty much no bleached bone or beached bone involved. Each guy was just a whole different color. The armor was all different on each one. So this is the one thing I've noticed with the creature caster / monument transparent paints. You can water those down and not have to. Sometimes when you water down the contrast paints, weird things can happen. So that does not happen with the monument paint. So that is good to know. Yeah, we'll just hit this other little bit of armor here, and then we're going to let this, give him some dark brown here. Why not? We'll just say that the armor is dry enough to go ahead and hit that. So once again, for everywhere that's just coming in, we are comparing contrast paints to the new, the transparents from ProAcryl. And we're doing that on the brand new Baratheons. And all of those units, like I said, I've been prepping those like crazy so that those will be ready for more demos for you guys. Now let's see if we can take some of this yellow here, and we'll just go with that. Now we're gonna go back around here to Alistair Florent, and I see some browns in here. There's a touch of red in that, and we just mixed some red in with our browns, even a little bit of blue. I don't want it to be too close to the other red though, so maybe a touch of yellow in here. Yep, just a little touch of yellow. Let's see, before Tomb Kings were a thing. Yeah. Let's see. What's the new? I wonder if, well, there's no bleach bone color, but it seems like actually the stuff you're supposed to use with the contrast paints, gosh, what is that called? That seems to be the new bleached bone. That color was around for a long time. Alright. Now we can also hit the sword blade here real quick. Blam, like so. This hair also is somewhat grayish, so this is essentially a very watered down, really watered down ProAcryl here. I'll just give him a touch of beard, and then we'll set him aside. Then we are going to go back, speaking of that red trick, and we are going to do that on Stannis here. We need to get that a little bit more beefy, so we're going to get some of that red. One thing I also just right now noticed about the creature caster, I almost called it clear red, because I'm thinking in Reaper Clears still, is that it does last a bit longer on the palette. It's got a little more life to it. The contrast paints, those will run out in a hurry. Now you use them, you're working with them, and all of a sudden, boy, I need to throw out some more. Wow, I need to throw out some more. So there's his jerkin, and he had some really dark armor. And let's grab, actually I'm gonna try this. So we've been using all the transparents. This is not a transparent, this is actually just a regular paint color right here. Differentiating between shades is my issue. Partly shade by ow. Yeah, actually, now, so this is kind of a brown liner right here for all the folks who hopefully also think in clear and liner paints. I'm going to do a little experiment in a second. So this is a bit like the dark umber. I'm going to combine this with some of the blue and see what that does. That makes a nice kind of a solid color right there. So that was interesting. Again, just a little experiment again. Here, let's hit that armor and his boots. Alright, like so. Back to that dark brown here on the boots. All I'm looking to do is just get a little bit of shading there. And then we're going to be mixing these as we've done so many times before. We're just going to get a little bit of color on the sword blade. We'll be doing all the reflective stuff later on. Going to get a little bit of brown into that sword handle, and I'm just going to use this. It's a bit of a quick homemade flesh wash here. Just over the top. It's kind of a palette sludge flesh wash, but we're already into palette sludge. Yeah, let's put this over here. Yeah, we're just gonna try to take away the areas of primer here. And I'm gonna flip these two because, interestingly enough, so you can see how that settled down into the crevices there. That's essentially what you would have with your contrast paints, wouldn't you? It's pretty much the same here. See how that settled down into the crevices. So to me, they are really similar. There are some differences. Now what I'm going to do, this is the interesting thing with, I always talk about different types of contrast, right? So this is one of the mountains men that I'm doing in my latest series. And what I'm going to do is I have to get to my camera controls here. We are going to take the color intensity and we are going to wipe it away. So you can see there's still, you've still got shading there. There's still lights and darks. Look at the sword. Now let's start to restore the color as we go back to where we were. Now you see there's purple over here, there's the sky blue over here, but when you take that color intensity away, you see it's just values. That's all you see. Same thing on his chest plate. We'll bring back the color again. Then you can see the purples, you see the tans, you see the blues. That's the kind of thing, if you can almost just know it's there. You have to, yes, you can see it, but you just have to make those mental notes. Like, okay, I put purple over here. I know I can put green on the opposite side or some kind of teal, and I'm going to get some interesting contrasts. It's not going to be a light versus dark. It's somewhat opposites, I guess you would say. Here, let's do the same sort of little quickie thing on the skin here. Let's make that a little more intense. But this is very watered down. I almost called them contrast paints. Very watered down ProAcryl. Now maybe this will also be some translucency there. We'll see. Now, what if we do maybe some secondary shading in here too? I'll take some. This is what I was just using actually for skin tone washes here. We're just going to give that another layer in here. One more layer like so. We're going to put some of that also on the armor in a few places. Just want to make sure that the interior also has its color. There we are. Now let's just grab some lighter colors here. What do we have? What have we got? We have this neutral light gray. Let's mix this with a few things. The heck of talent. Oh gosh, what was it they used to call... Oh, it would help if I took the seal off of this. Oh, Devlin Mud. They used to call it liquid talent. And I believe Wildwood is the new liquid talent. At least that's what I heard that first week when the contrast paints came out. So I just got... This is that light gray. It's serving as essentially an off-white. I think I've got me some blue. I'm going to throw a little bit of that transparent blue back out here again. So a little bit of the transparent blue. And we'll throw a little bit of the black. So that's the one thing I'm seeing is when you open these up and you put the paint out here. Yeah, that's when I close this. See, we got this big old blob of paint coming out of them. So that's one thing I am noticing right off the bat. Here, let's find another spot for this. So see, I just made that sky blue color right there. See if we can blacken that down just a bit. I'm just taking some of the black, mixing in there, and now we should, there we go. You see how that's relatively similar to some of the colors we already had here. It's because we basically took the same colors that we used for the wash, so to speak, and then we put those, mixed them just a touch with that lighter color. And you're going to see that in some of these reflected areas here. You'll see it on the sword blade, you'll see it here on the, especially on his leg right there. I'm going to see that here on the armor over his feet. Now the one thing, remember I told you about the the ProAcryl paints, is that they tend to cover, and by cover I mean just like a blanket. And I wanted to see, do the transparent paints make them a little bit less opaque. So here we got the transparents again that we're going to mix in there, making this a little lighter. So we're starting to sneak in a little bit of the non-metallics at this stage. And if you remember, I always talk about, I see there's a little, so this is actually just, according to the reference picture, that is just the same color as the rest of the armor. Now let's get ourselves, here, we'll get back in here again. But we're not trying to do the sky earth. We have to think reflections here. Even though it's not sky earth, we still have to reflect colors, and it seems that's very watery right there, that what I just put on there. So we have to think some linear. These aren't highlights, these are really just mid-tones here. We have to think, not jumping into the lightest color yet. What's the lightest thing we've got even on the palette is basically a light gray. We don't even have white whatsoever out there. Still working with the transparent blue and black mixed with just a touch of that light gray. Gives them a little bit of opacity, because you'll see, quick example here, see how much lighter that is. That just, all we did was add a bit more of the light gray to it. when I think of just how many miniatures we have painted over the years, that's a lot of miniatures, and we just, over the course of time, also to just studying what other people are doing, because you get ideas from them too. That's always a good plan. If we had just done this in a vacuum, we certainly never would have been able to do what we are now. So we're building up these lights, but as you look at the reference there on the screen, eventually we're going to put some other colors in these other sections of the armor too. We also have to get reflections. Right now we're working on that, on our lights and darks. So here we're just starting to work in just a bit more of a light. And that seems like it's a highlight, but it really is not. Look at how much lighter that is. That's barely even the original light gray. Barely even the original light gray. And already you can see that starts to make a big difference. We have to, as I look at the reference picture up here, we do have a significant amount of lighter tones. And let's get back to his sword blade here. So this is your Renly Baratheon here, and I believe Renly and Stannis, those are your two commanders. Song of Ice and Fire, the new Baratheon starter box. I'm looking forward to, I've got the Stag Knights that I'm prepping. I've got the Wardens. They're really different from previous Song of Ice and Fire things that I've painted. I've obviously done a lot of the Lannisters. These guys, they definitely, well, I think the Tully Cavaliers also are, or just the Tullys in general, are a bit on the different side too. So there's a lot of that scale armor there, that sort of the dragon scale type stuff, that leaf armor. So that should be pretty interesting as well. And as I said, I'm making a few sort of assumptions here on certain armor pieces, and on the cloak here I'm going yellow. I'm just gonna go yellow because why not? Now here we also can't forget about the back of this. Here, let's grab a touch of that blue. And the idea is, like I said before, we don't want to go too much in the sky, so I just grabbed a little bit of the brown there, actually just kind of to sully the mix. Hey Justin, how's it going? Oh, and it's if there's any incoherency to how I sound, slurring speech, whatever, no, that's not refreshment induced or whatever. That is just fatigue from Gen Con, because that was not the easiest of physical schedules. That was wake up call every day at 6 and usually finally getting to bed around 2 a.m. the next day. So we are still trying to recover from that. So if I cease to make any sense here, that should be a pretty good indication of why. Yeah, let's go with an even lighter gray mix. Ah, see, that's still not even white, and it looks like I just plopped white on there, but I did not. Like I said, we're trying to save that for those final details. Alright. I also want to make sure I save myself enough time to be able to do at least one base with that stag iconography on it, so it's not so much about finishing miniatures here as, like I said, this testing of one material versus another. Hey, just then it's going. I'm just working on a diorama for. Oh yeah, thanks on that, on the sill bust there. That was a lot of fun because it was so much bigger than anything that I've ever worked on before. There's ways that I could play with that, especially with the airbrush and the ghost tints. Never had a chance to do before. So that was a lot of fun. Here, I'm just gonna throw a little bit of a light on the side of that blade there. We're gonna get some action on the center. Well, this is definitely, it's doing the creature caster. Sorry guys, I'm always gonna call it creature caster because in all of the meetings where we were talking about this, it was with the creature caster folks, so I know it's Monument or whatever that's on the label, but hopefully you'll just bear with me on that. We were just getting on a few little light areas there. Now let's start to play a little bit with the skin tones here too. We don't want to get too wrapped up in just metals. So let's make ourselves a skin tone by mixing that same light gray with some of our other colors that are just laying around on the palette here. Because why not? Then we gotta go. Oh, that's much obliged there. And you can watch these anytime. They're just like any old recorded episode. So hopefully this kind of little quick comparison was handy, depending on which of these is easier for you to get. The price difference, well, that may be negated by shipping costs too, depending on where you're at. So yeah, see, it just didn't take much to take whatever that, I don't think it was the same red that I was using to make the cloaks. Now I just made a flesh tone out of it. Let's get a little more brightness on the forehead and the cheeks here. And then we can get a little bit of green into these skin tones. Let's get a little bit of underlighting there. Now some green. And we're just going to take some contrast green here. Mix it in with the flesh tone. That's the Warp Lightning green. And oh, by the way, this is still my homemade wet palette here from the Chinese food container and the chamois sponge and all that. That contrast paint has been sitting in there in this little plastic bin here. Oh geez, weeks. 10 days minimum, potentially as much as 17 days, I would say, sitting in there. So something to be said for essentially a free container that can keep paint active like that without smelling or looking weird or getting weird for that long. Now there's some green in the reference picture, right? Who's to say we don't put a little bit of that into our reflected light, like so, right there. See that? Let's put some of that over here and over here and in a few other spots. And we're going to also maybe throw some of that on our sword blade. We're going to put it here on his leg. So once again, we're just taking what we put on the flesh tones and we are now putting that right here on the armor. Man, actually I just made stickers for these today as I take the gray and yellow and combine them. The first couple of test stickers on the little nuggets of wisdom, well, wisdom, nuggets of information or random thoughts that happen on these broadcasts. And those are now stickers. I'll be bringing those to ReaperCon. Yeah, ReaperCon is, I think now, what is this, the 8th, so about 20 days from now we head off to ReaperCon. So yeah, that's coming. Now we're going to take the brown, we're going to mix it with that yellow. Look at that, that's a nice semi-translucent mix there. But it's also a little less red. We're also going to get a little bit of that yellow here. Onto the armor in a few places. Oh, let's do that over here too. I think I've got this held in a good location for you. The 1/2 scale busts, and I've gotten to see them in person a few times. Yeah, they're definitely more on the expensive side. I think there's 5 of them. There's the Angelique, the Syl. I just don't know the names of the other. Oh, there's the Imhotep, and there's one other one. Yeah, I should get some of this on right there. I just like the idea of having a little bit of the yellow reflected in the armor here, so let's do some of that. Now we've got ourselves some armor over here we got to do some things with, so let's take this and we'll start to add some here. Yeah, here's the other one. And try not to go just only bluish there, because, well, bluish gray is alright for stuff that's, well, pointed towards the sky, but stuff pointed towards the ground, maybe not so much. I'm going to take, again, some of this yellow here. Yeah, that's, well, okay, what is it, the Labor Day weekend too, I think that made it difficult for some folks also, because it was like a family holiday thing and they were doing their vacation stuff or whatever. Now I am going to just, so I made that lighter and then I just threw a quick little glaze of the whatever over the top of it. Again, this is still only the light gray, this is not white. Just now, this is where we start to say, okay, let's build up towards our lighter lights. Not the lightest ones yet, but something that's really gonna boost us some contrast here. Because that's what, when you're doing the non-metallic stuff and you're looking to do the armor, even if it's going to be not necessarily the sky earth, you gotta get some reflectivity in there and some decent highlights, even on black armor. Now the Gen Con, there was one thing I really didn't expect to be doing, and that was entering the MHE paint contest. I almost never get to enter those anymore. They usually don't have categories that work real well for what I do, and chiefly units. Looking at unit category, and these actually got a silver there. These are the Knights of Castle Rock, and these are, well, it was done on a live session, so you can go check those out where I painted those in a live session just like this. I don't think I was using anything, I was just using my normal, I think my clear and liner paints on that. So you can check that out. Here, we're just gonna bring out a few, and you can see we do these linear style highlights just because it's a cylinder. I'm not I don't want to try and shade a cylinder the same way I would something that is round, and you can see just how intense that blue gets here. Maybe the last October one, they may shift back to October, and who knows, it's the new hotel might have just really locked him into that for a couple of years, and maybe after 2-3 years, I don't want to call it seniority, but maybe they have a little more pull with the hotel as they show the hotel, yeah, we can bring in the numbers for you. So this has a little more purple in it. Yeah, speaking of purple, actually this is the, yeah, that is the Monument purple, transparent purple. I just mixed that in. We want to get a little bit of purple in the armor here. It's sort of the same as what we did on the Mountains Men. And by mixing in all of these different colors in your armor, just gives it so much more depth than otherwise might have. Because I see these non-metallic, so-called non-metallic sets, right? And those are fantastic if it's a non-metallic set that's based on a guy standing on grass, or a certain color marble, or just something that's super specific. Because otherwise, that non-metallic set's not going to help you very much. How can it? Because it can't. How can one set of paint say, okay, here's non-metallics in this environment, or here's non-metallics for a guy wearing yellow clothes? It just, there's no way. There's just not enough. There are not enough of the. You'd have to buy 100 sets. Here, let's get a little more of the darker tones in here, so you can do the secondary washes. That's again with the transparent black, and it's pretty. Wow, that's intense. That is really, really intense. Very intense. Now let's just see, I think I'll be able to use this more like the Reaper liners and clears than, say, the contrast paints. I'm noticing that. And I hope this is not sound like, you know, here's the good, here's the bad. It's just, oh, look, here's what happened when I did this. I'm not trying to say one is better than the other. You know how things are like these. There's going to be stuff that works really well for certain situations, and then there may come another situation where something else just works better. Now, let's play around with some kind of freehand on the base here. Oh, thanks, Justin. Appreciate that. Yeah, categories are always kind of a bugaboo at conventions. Here, let's go this way with it. I'm just going to try and sketch this out here. Here's your beginning part of your stag body there, and we definitely want to get the rampant pose of the legs, and then let's get our horns here. I'll go this way. Now we have to think of some. I'm just going to go with the flower type pattern here again. So we'll just do the, let's get a little more of an opaque look to this. And the idea is to get these little stems and stalks here, and let's do a little more work on the stag, get a little more yellow into that. And we can develop that more later on. We just want to remember that it's there, get a little more of the lighter yellow into the cloak here. There's the creature caster paints. Actually, in the time it took you to write that comment, 47 new paint lines have been launched. Maybe 50. Was that every 30 seconds a car is stolen or something like that? Well, pretty much every 30 seconds a new paint line launches. The idea here was we're trying to compare it to the contrast paints, because I've seen a lot of the recent live sessions, and we actually, in the initial stages here, we had some of the contrast paint out. It's the Transparents from Creature Caster / ProAcryl / Monument / Earth, whatever. There we go. I'm just going to lighten up this a little bit more. So this is what I wanted to see. Could I take lighter colors? Same thing we did with the contrast paint. Take lighter colors. I get a little more of the yellow here as a secondary, a little bit of a reflective light. Could I take those lighter colors, mix them with the transparents, and do something similar to like what I did? So we get a little more reflected light over here on the cloak there. This is how I made the flesh tone. This is just the same reds that we used on the tunic for Alistair. It's all made for artist by artist, so you can substitute skill with money. I think when they were first working on these, one of my big questions was, okay, what's the reason for being with these? Is there something different about these, or is it just basically a bottle to stick a label on? Because it seems like a lot of miniature companies feel like they need to have a bottle with a label on it that has their name. And is it really, what value does it actually have? Does it need to be there? Is it something different? Now was it the Chimera paints? I tried those. Those were distinctly different. Actually the ProAcryls, I gotta say, they are very much different from other paints that I've used. They're just getting some more lights on his face. And I want to do some stuff with the purple here. See what we can get. I want to go right on this blade, right here. Like so. Bang. That's what I wanted. Right in that area. Then I've got my light, my sky blue over there. Now, yeah, I want to have some of the ground reflected in this, but I still need some of that sky color because it's not turned perfectly towards the ground. Now there will be, and I'm gonna say after ReaperCon just because of the time it's going to take to ship, there will be some of the Chimera colors. Yeah, Chimera colors. So even the second word starts with a K. Those will be working their way over here, and we're going to give those a shot. And like I think you saw in those Gen Con photos, I had to come up with a little different way of working with those. Alright, let's get ourselves... Now this is one of the new colors here. This is what, a pale pink right here. We're going to try this. These are so new, I have to take these seals off of them. I think the other thing that I do like about these paints is they do have, here you can, I don't know if you can hear that agitator in there. There's an agitator in each one. So let's get this little bit of the pink out here. Let's see if we can use this and mix this with some of our other colors too. Just looking to get a little more lights on the face. I'm gonna go back and grab some of my little homemade flesh color there. We'll get some stuff going on the cheekbones. Now let's see if we can find ourselves. This is one of the older ones. The original color is the bright ivory here. I'm going to throw this out there. Just going to throw it over in the corner here. Still, even this, not exactly a white per se. Just want to be able to get some lights in the eyes here. Like so. Let's see if we can get the other one. Is that on screen? Oh, that is on screen for you. Almost there. I mean, we can even mix that with a little bit of our flesh tone. So this is, once again, we're mixing these lighter colors with the transparent paints. That was a mix of transparents that we did. Now it's, look at when I take this. That's interesting. I just wanted to see what would happen with kind of the wet palette there if I did that. I'm gonna take, that's the black brown, and we're not trying to give him makeup here, but what we are gonna do, so here underneath the eyes, and we take it all the way to where the eyebrow would be. Now he also has some dark, when you look at the art, where is he? He's in the lower right hand corner, sorry. Yeah, it's the one place where you can just add so much extra interest. And you get a little bit of green in there, you get a little bit of purple in there. Let's see if we can't, there's that, again, this is contrast paint green right here. Is that the warp stone green, I think, or warp lightning green. Now what I'm going to do is take some of this, some of that. Again, just trying to make sure this is on screen for you, and this, we're going to do a little bit of a right here. So see what that did? Just by default it gave us an eyebrow and an eyelid. So instead of trying to draw those in, they basically happen on their own. See, then we connected here, so it's already starting to look off that way, but we didn't have to draw in that eyebrow. It just happened by itself. Just happened. You didn't have to really struggle at that to really draw it in. Now let's give them a little bit more of a furrowed brow here. I'm trying to do this based on what I'm seeing in the concept art. I'm going to try and get that watered down a touch. And that is making that a bit on the lighter side. He has quite the distinct nose. He has some really high cheekbones here too. See how now we've got nice distinct shape over there. I can even try and zoom in a little bit here, maybe. The secret weapon, tire black and old rust. I know Kathy. I have Kathy. She loves the weathering paints just as much as I do, and she has some favorites. And I think the old rust, I think both of us love it. Actually, we do, because we're basically out of it. Every single jar in the house, we're basically fighting over scraps now. And she'll be doing her stream again. Well, today, because tomorrow is today. Actually, in 12 hours. Because I see it's 3:25 here. So round about 12 hours from now, 11 and a half, she'll be doing her stream. So you get basically, what, 12 hours of Wappelville. That's not too shabby. And it's not just reflected light on the armor, it's also on the skin. And speaking of reflected light, I'm starting to put in some more here. And even, see right there, I actually reflect a little bit of his face color onto the armor there. Oh, I'm going to go back into the, oh gosh, where is that? The black transparent, and we're just going to hit some parts of the hair again. I'm looking to get my deepest darks in here before I think about some sort of a highlight on that. And see if I can't take some of that brown black and do a few darks. We've been adding a lot of lighter colors and mid-tones, but let's see about adding some darks also. Don't want to forget about the belt here and the leather stuff. Once again, we have to do something here that's a little bit of a reflected light of some kind. So let's see, we got the light, dark, light, dark, light, dark, conveniently enough. Oh, I'm real bad at being awake during normal hours. Well, yeah. Oh my gosh, Gen Con, it essentially was like being teleported to Australia overnight, because they're, what, 13 hours ahead of us? And that's essentially what I did, because, well, as you know, these things typically go to around 5 in the morning, which meant all of a sudden I was waking up at the time that I normally would be going to bed. And hilarity ensued. And like I said, we are still trying to recover from that, so like I said, if something I say doesn't really make a whole bunch of sense, that is ye old sleep deprivation at work. So what I'll be doing is at least 2 or 3, well, at least 2 of the Baratheon units. Those will be part of the Patreon page. And that's the $15 a month. You can see it. I got a link in the description that I'll be putting there for it if you're seeing this after the fact. And now I just added a couple little bits of the white there. Now we're going to try and go right down the center of the blade here too, like this, right here, all the way down. It's going to be broken up in a few places. It's just best not to have only a continuous line. Looks a little bit less like a cartoon. And now it looks like, well, maybe there's some kind of chips there, or there's some reason the reflections are a little bit broken there. Now let's get ourselves a few lights here too. This is that ivory once again. So we're pretty much, for the most part, we have been working now with exclusively the Monument stuff. And we're going to go into if you're wondering, actually the blue, it's almost more like the Achillean green, and this is Achillean green here. So I'm going to take some of this and I'm going to mix the same color with it, and you can see how similar this is to this, and that is your transparent blue. Let's see if I can. Here we go. So ironically enough, these two are kind of similar, even though this looks more green and this looks more blue. When you mix them with a third color, that lighter color, you get really, really similar results. So that's, I didn't know what to expect. I had no idea. You don't know until you give it a try. So you can see we're starting to work in more of these different colors into the armor here. Now let's get a little bit lighter with this, essentially a sky blue type of color. Don't want it to be too light. We're going to transition that a bit. See, into more of a darker sky blue there. Now we need to get a little more, actually some dark into the chest plate here in a few places. Because again, I'm looking to try and stay with the, I don't want to call it box art, but the illustration there, the concept art as much as possible. Let's see if we can get that same line that you see in the illustration. So a line that kind of goes like this. It does even work its way into that armor plate just a bit. And then I'm going to actually try and take some of the armor color here and then go into the face with it. Now we're going to take some of that ivory with the black. Let's see if we can't get a few highlights on the hair. We don't want to take the hair off of black, but I need a touch of brown in here too. That was getting a little too just gray. I don't want it to be gray. I want some brown to this. Let's work that right down here. Nice long strands of hair. Wasn't too much of an issue with mold lines going through that. And I want to cast a little bit of the hair color onto some of the armor here, like that. If the hair color or the hair highlights get too light, it just ceases to be dark hair anymore. The ring of light on the upper torso, yeah, that's that. So I'm just going after this right here. That's going after that. So I hope you don't mind if I just sort of stuck to Renly over here, because I'll be working on the other ones too in more live sessions. We can maybe do a bit of a follow-up one later this week on these guys maybe. Now some of those also, I try and save as much of that for the Patreon videos too. Especially the folks that are part of that Army Painting Pledge, because when you sign up for that, I'll be sending you in an email. Oh my gosh, I think it's 120 hours worth of videos from the YouTube channel that are unlisted that only the patrons can see, and that list just keeps getting longer and longer and longer. Because well, as you might have heard earlier, I'm on series 12 with the army painting, and you're talking about 5 episodes apiece. And so that you're looking at around 12-13 hours for every army painting series. And now we're on number 11. I believe we're on, I'm filming Dark Sword 22. So you have 22 episodes just on Dark Sword miniatures that focus on different techniques like this. So you can see we're starting to differentiate now between these panels here. Here, let's get a little more of a light. Boom, right there, not all the way down. Now that needs something here, and I'm going to give it a little bit of a sky color here. Let's do that right here. I think you can see it. Yeah, you can see that. So bang, right there. Now let's do. This is the key to that darker armor, is you sort of keep that highlight in a narrow band. See how we left that in one narrow band there, and now we'll lighten up. This is actually the pink here. But see, it's just in that one spot where it gets lighter, and that's it. Actually working with a little bit of the pink and the shyish purple. That's one of those contrast paints. So we're just smoothing that down. Now we need a little more reflected light under here. Oh, that's going to be too much. I could just feel that in my bones. That was going to be way too much. Yeah, it's sort of funny. Now, I get to do this, and Justin is watching here and working at the same time, which is what I do with a lot of the model railroad terrain videos. I don't get to listen to as many of those anymore because, well, it'd be really hard to listen to those and film these. But sometimes I actually listen to the same episode 8-9 times just to really get a handle on, okay, what are they using? You know, how they're using it, that's important too, but there were times where I would hear materials and I go, they're using what? So yeah, I've definitely tried listening to tutorials myself also, so that I can maybe translate some of that information then to you guys. Alright, I'm just looking over here at my reference picture, saying what are we wanting to do here with these lights. Let's get these also kind of arcing around, and then they almost, oh gosh, it's not connected dots, but they extend out a bit here. It's just something I'm noticing. Again, this is from the concept art that I'm looking at. Maybe even just a few, sort of a ring of highlights here. Sometimes that helps with darker here, actually, is to have that ring of highlights, whereas I don't want to say normal here, but mid-tone color here, the browns and such. See how there's just this ring of highlights there? Alright, I'm looking at his... Okay, so that needs to be more like so, and like so. I just trying to familiarize myself with some of the armor that I'm seeing here. Oops, sorry, that's getting turned around. What we are trying to do right here is work in, yeah, see a light that goes this way now. I'm going to play a little bit with my brightness here. Let's see if I can't do another one of those right over here. So I'm just watering this down. Another little striation right here. Essentially, that's what I'm trying to do. Don't really know of a better term for it. Let's get a little bit of reflected light in this area too. Alright. Focus a little bit now down here on the the armor over his feet. Same over here, and let's see if we can't play around with our stag over here. I see this is actually supposed to be maybe a gold. We'll hit some more golds on this, maybe even a little bit of a reflection onto the sword there. So you can see how we're trying to reflect the cloth onto the knee there. Now the stag. We'll just get some of the, like this tree type pattern here, the flower type pattern. And it's just going to be these little arcs like this. And then we'll get the leaves on the end of them too. And then what we can do is once we have these, then we can tone those down. To always, well, you can go back and forth, tone it down, lighten it up again. I think you can see that's starting to emerge now there. I'm going to bring my chat back over here. Name is Luke. Oh yeah. There's Luke's Apia, and then Kathy Millot. That's another one, the model railroader that I like. She was the one that got me thinking about the chinchilla dust and tile grout. You know, for even just for bases too. Obviously she's using it more for diorama style things, but we would use it more for bases. Now let's work in some lighter colors on the stag here now. There's your front leg there. I like to do the marble bases. It's something I've done, oh my gosh, for many years now. As you can see, there's no doubt now when you see this base, you just know what faction that is. You know, I've done it with the Lannisters too. And you can check out some of the other live sessions that I've done to see the crossbowmen. I'll show you some of the other units that I've done. Let's see, the Warrior Sons. That's another one of the units that I did in a army painting series. Those guys, they were interesting with the rainbow cloaks, I gotta tell you that. Very interesting. Now, as we're playing around with this here, this is where I'm going to see how much of a equivalent of this is the Creature Caster transparent black to something like a Reaper liner paint, and I think it is a more direct comparison. Now this will be interesting here. So I'm just going to try and do myself a nice little line right here. Yeah, so this is something this is another difference with the contrast version. This is a little bit more like, this is definitely more like the Reaper Clear, or the Clear and Liner paints. It's like a hybrid, and I thought it might be. Alright, let's do a second line here. Hopefully you can see this. So we're going to do a second line. Just going to fade down here into the interior. And pull this one out here. So we got our two lines. Now we've got, it's almost like a, so we're going to do this, an arc here, and get rid of some of this. we're going to start this here. So we got an arc right there. There's another one here. We're just going to continue that. So there's again another arc there. It's a little bit stretched out because of the way the cloth is. We're going to do another one here. And it ends right at the end of the cloth. We're going to do another one here that comes up this way, over, around, and down. And then, so what I'm showing you right here, this is what I'm doing. So this is that pattern that I drew out. Remember, you saw it earlier on for the bases that I'm doing. So that was that pattern that I transferred onto the unit bases like that. Because there's a bit of, what would you say, not like vines. Let's do that right here. And then, in effect, it's like a reverse of these little arcs that we just did. And then I can make that line a little heavier. And then we can put some, looks like there are diamond shapes. We can just put sort of a diamond shape there, and there, and there. And we're going to we'll just put them here. That's what we'll do. We'll put them on these opposite connecting points here. Sometimes with freehand, you just gotta play with it sometimes. I'll put another one of those dots there. And then we can go back in again with some of our yellow, and now you can see we can modify those dots. We didn't want just a big flat blob of a dot there. We're just going to modify those. It breaks up the line a little bit. And then I can even go in here. Right there, establish maybe a little more highlights on the robe itself. Now I can really go in with some here. Let's take some of that's the contrast yellow, with the Iandin yellow. So like I said, I'm trying to use both to compare and see what do they do. But that little episode that I just did right there, where I took basically the black, was that the Monument Transparent black. I think I just did with that. What the bases you done for each army. Oh, hey Brian, how's it going? So I look at, yeah, what was that? The Lannisters. They have that real convenient lion texture for the Green Stuff World texture rollers. So that really, talk about setting the stage for me pretty easy. Like, I got a little spoiled with that, and then all of a sudden it was time to do these guys, and well, at least for the moment, I don't know that Green Stuff World has any stag themed texture rollers. Now that could change. I'm actually going to ask them with the puppy dog eyes to maybe make some. So see what I just did there? I added some of the yellow to that armor color there, and we are going to do the same thing right here on some of that. So again, we're trying to reflect these things off of each other. Is there maybe a touch of extra enhancement, a little more exaggeration than maybe you would have normally? Of course, it's a miniature, and of course it's not real at all, so why not add a little bit more of yourself in there, just kind of enhance the effect more. So yeah, we gotta get some reflected light here too on this part of the armor. So it says, okay, yeah, we'll go. So essentially this is where we were, basically at the start. That was with our contrast-esque layers. And now we've hammered away at him. And we're starting to get ourselves some really nifty armor. Hey Brian, so it looks like you're going to do a video. Reply to a comment saying you had a chat about it. Yeah, that would be really fun, because well, actually Vince and I, we had a chance to, oh that's right, we were judging the creature caster contest together at Adepticon. I was bummed that we only had a few minutes to see each other at Gen Con, because well, we were vendors, and when you're a vendor all you see is the inside of your booth at the dealer's room. So I'm hoping there's maybe some other conventions before, well, next Adepticon, where we get to see each other and actually get to talk, because it's really fun to hear other people's ideas on stuff. So I'm not starting to add a little yellow here too, just because you can see I've added the yellow here on that part of the armor. Oh, thanks, this is, people, you know, they ask the reasons why do I do the non-metallic stuff, and there's a lot of practical reasons and such, but being able to do these crazy reflections like this, I'm just taking some of the, this is that blue here, and we're going to make ourselves a little bit of a light right here, bam, right there. And maybe I'll put in the greens and the purples and all that crazy stuff. There's just something about that. Now I also have, and this is something else that's going to be coming up here, I don't know how many I can do before ReaperCon, that I have the Green Stuff World metallic paints, well, and the Creature Caster metallic paints, and they both make essentially a metal medium, which you've seen me use in other episodes, the Vallejo metal medium. And you can bet I want to try that out. I want to see what that does. So that'd be basically me trying to do a little bit of the true metal, yeah, TMM, the true metallic metals. So that is definitely something I want to try. And as I mentioned there, the Mountains Men army painting video that I'm working on now, the series, that's oils. I think I've done 2 series in oils already. Was it Morgul Knights, Lord of the Rings? Oh, and my Winter Soviets Revolt Action, that's right. How could I forget my Winter Soviets? So we're having some fun here, again working with the reflections, trying to work in sky colors. See, we're working some sky color down there. Let's get a little bit more of a point there. See, we want to keep that broken line. I want to keep that broken line, but I also have to get some kind of, there has to be some light over here, because we want light, dark, light. I want to go the opposite way here, so it's dark, light, dark, and by light I mean not too light. I'm going to actually use a little bit of that. That's the skin color there, the pink. Yeah, that's what I'm looking to do. Okay, so we're going to start with that, and then we are going to fade that out as we go to either side. So we're just going to fade this out on either side. So we got this sort of light, 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 dark, 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 and a bit of a triangle pattern, I guess. Now I'm going to add a few more lights here. Again, I'm hoping this is on screen for you. So right here, let's get some of this off of here. And we're just trying to, there we go. We're trying to walk this little pattern right down across the armor, across the torso here. And the one thing we still haven't actually put down on here, we have not put down white. This is still an ivory. It is not pure white. We may not actually put pure white on here at all. And we're doing those same, see a line of highlights that go here. That is that indication of, best indication of that darker metal color. Let's get some lighter highlights here too on the shoulder. Shoulder pieces here. I still want to give him some eyeballs. Now down, oh, I said definitely down on the shoes here. Well, the armor over his shoes. We got to get a few highlights here too. Definitely a couple of those. Oh yeah, we need something here too. This is definitely underdeveloped over there. I'm gonna go back to my yellow over here. I might even, I've always done so much of the smooth cloak here. What if I was to do something more like this? I think that's something I'm going to do in one of my newer dark sword videos here, is just indicate a little bit of that texture there. Like that. Here, let's get some over on this side. Nah, sucker for TMM. I've done it on a few things so far, not mostly on the bolt action side of things. And there was a sci-fi, oh gosh, it was the Warlord thing. Yeah, it was from Gates of Antares. Now we're gonna hit a few lighter lights in here. Just trying to hit some of that texture on it. So again, I haven't done anything like that. Thought that might be fun. Now we've got to, I see we got some armor here that needs a little bit of a light there, and then right in here. Can I even get in here? I'm looking for this one piece. Bang, right there. Then the reflected light again. Gonna walk those reflections up. Once again, I see some yellow that I'm missing here. There we are. And we're gonna go over to here with a little bit of our, let's go back to our base here once again. I know the sword is in the way. Watch a software tutorial. Well, thanks again. Just, it's really fantastic to have company on these things. So that is much appreciated, and I'll for sure be doing at least one more this week, if not two, maybe even more than that. So thanks again for spending, well, I guess part of your morning. Wow, it's 4 o'clock. I did not realize that. And we're going to just enhance our, get the freehand on the base here. a little more into the yellow there. I'm not quite sure if that's sort of almost like a little bit of an extended stag type of imagery right here along this hilt. Let's see, what do we got? I think this is, yep, that is snakebite leather, so that's a contrast color there. Mixing it with our skin tone shading color there, and now we got ourselves a reddish brown. That's what I was hoping to end up with, because I wanted to do some of these straps with it just to get a little bit of color differential here. So it's still part of our contrasting, compare and contrasting contrast paints to the ProAcryl Preachcaster paints. Oh, let's get that upper lip there a little bit darker. So we're gonna take some of that's our black. Again, the transparent black, mixing it with some of the transparent red in an upper lip here. Right there. Let's give him a little bit of a lower lip too. And now, let's see if I can't give him some eyeballs that are looking off in the right direction. So, looks like you can see it. I'm just going to have to thin this down a bit. It's the same thing I would have to do with the liner paints that I'd normally use. And we're just going to connect upper and lower lids here. So sometimes I have to hold it this way. I know that's weird for you guys to see that. Now, what I'm going to do is go back in here with my lighter color. Get a bit of separation there. Now let's go into our, this is what we used over the eye lid and under the eyebrow. Go back to our separation there. So now he's looking off to the left a little bit more. And there's some refinements and stuff that I basically kind of have to do after the fact, because I just can't necessarily hold the figure the right way and be able to actually see it myself. Now we need to, this needs to be a little bit different right in here. I'm going to see, this is some of my purple right here. Yeah, so I've re-established a little bit of my shadow there, and now I'm going to take some of this lighter color here. Now you can see it, and my plan is right in there is to get just a touch of reflected light. What I'm trying to do is keep the inside of the cloak here darker, because there's definitely a strong theme of that. And when I look at the other miniatures, or at least the concept art forum, that seem to be very, it's that combination of the black and yellow. It's not automatically everybody's cloak is yellow. Speaking of a few, reinforcing a few lines, let's do that here in some parts of the armor here. On the top side. I think the blade's pretty well reinforced. Let's go with a little bit of our some of our pattern here that's on the cloak. So I'm still, at least as far as stuff like the cloak goes, I'm still sort of feeling my way through that. I'm going to do this. I'm going to throw a little bit of a quick glaze over the top of that. That was just, it was yellow for almost no reason, so we just changed it. Get another bit of reflected light right over there. Just needed to clean up, yeah, we need to clean up a little bit of a line there. Same thing over here. And should I, yeah, I'm gonna try and get myself some, go back into the green here. So that's, again, that contrast green, mixing it with some of the creature caster paint there. Right in like that. It's barely even going to register as green. In fact, it really won't register as green. That's sort of part of the plan. Now let's make that a little lighter. We're looking to have some of that. It's a string of reflected light that walks up this way. And then ditto over here. Right along this. Like so. So for those not familiar with the Song of Ice and Fire miniatures game, this is from the new Baratheon starter set. We've been working on a few of the NCUs and some of the commanders, and this is one of the commanders here. You get Renly. Now in future tutorials there'll be a little bit more talk about strategy and list building around him, but at this early stage I'm going to stay mostly focused on the painting side of things. When more people have access to the tactics cards and that sort of thing. Now I'm going to go back down in here again. Yeah, a touch here on the underside of this to bring in some of that yellow. And I wanted to get some of that purple back in here. That's the creature caster purple there. So we're looking to see if I can't work that in here on the torso. Right in here. Yep, just even if it's only a few dots of it. It's just amazing what that little bit can do. We'll do some of that here. And here too. Also here. So if a color goes somewhere, it must go must go everywhere. So that's one of those little sayings we like to live by here in Wappelville, at least. Now let's see if I can't add some. Yeah, I'm just throwing a touch of pink in a few of these places. It's no one's even gonna say, "Hey, why'd you put pink on that scabbard there?" Won't even notice it's pink just because of what's around it. Get another belt right there. So we're even putting some belt or pink on the belt. Now let's get a few lighter things going on here with our belt. Got that little hole there, the hole punched in there. Do the other one, just a little indication that it's there. I'll go back, look at the face here. Let's see if there's anything. Something on the nose here, just to, there we go. Clean that up. Actually, the ear, I want to get a little more on the ear. Even the forehead too. I want that to go all the way up to the hairline. Sorry about that. There. That's better. It just seems to match the expression that's in the concept art a little more. Now I'm going to go back into the skin color again here. Get a little more reflected light. We're talking about reflected light on the metals. Let's do that on some of the skin here too. So we're going to lighten this up. This is that original skin tone that we made that was mixing essentially the transparent red with some of the brown. Let's get a little blue in there so that it doesn't get too pinkish. Let's make it a little more on the gray side. So a little while back we did the eyes there and showed how it's much easier to just lay down basically a dark area there and go in with some sort of middle tone in between color. Here, let's lighten up that. We don't want that to be too stark of a shadow line. There's meant to be a difference in shading there, but not quite that much of a difference. That's better. Now I see we got to do that here on our leather like that. Let's see, actually it's almost like there's two layers of plate in a lot of the areas here. Once again, looking to do some interesting things here with this little sort of arc of lights that I saw. Now we need to get, I really would like to get a few lights down in here, but they have to be pretty mellow. And that's why I just stayed away from the white, kind of using my skin color here. Yeah, so you can see that little bit of right there on the, basically on the calf. Touch of a highlight there on the, like let's go back to some of our, on our base again, some of our pattern here. Yeah, again, some of the leaves that we're going to add. Let's finish off another little, again, an arc, and add some leaves to it. And back to our stag here. We can also, so I've got my black here still, and that's again the transparent black. Now when I work on the overall unit, it'll be interesting to see just how the darker marble works with so much of the rest of the armor, and how that's going to affect the reflections on it. So that's gonna bring out our stag a little bit more now that we get rid of some of that initial brown that's there. And it's a way that I can clean up some of this other freehand that we sketched on there, because that's really all that was in the beginning. That was just sort of a sketch. Knowing all along that I could go back in there and make some changes to it. Just trying to, a couple of lines here you can't see, but that's just some lines in the armor I'm trying to secure. And like I said, all I'm trying to do here is we make the armor look a little bit more black, or the marble here a little more black, and then clean up some of the freehand. Maybe in some places we tone it down. I can do the fall foliage on this. I'll show you a unit in a second here. Let's see if this will work. Something I tried on a couple of my Lannister units. So here's my crossbows. So again, the lion theme, but you can see the leaves, cut leaves in there. We even used some of the weathering powders on those. So this was another live session that I did. And if you're looking for see some of the units that I did, here's one. I think this is Series 4, Series 5 right here. This is the Lannister halberds. It was all the Sky Earth non-metallic metal. That's again part of the Patreon series. Now I'm going to knock down some of these. See, I'm just going to tone that down. It's slight, but that is the advantage of the... Yeah, I could use something like this. So this is the snakebite leather contrast paint here. And can you see? Yeah, you can see it right here. So that just tones that down. So they're two very similar things. Obviously two very different price points. But maybe in your area it's just easier to get one versus the other. We're taking that same snakebite leather and we're doing some glazes over the top on our cloak here. And this is not really, it's not about advocating one over the other, anything like that. It's just testing it and saying, okay, here's what I've discovered. Again, snakebite leather over some of our golds here on the sword hilt. Maybe we're gonna go with some darker purple here. And this is on that right here on the torso. That's what I needed, a little separation, because there is, I don't want to call it an outline, but there's definitely a distinct edge. That was kind of, yeah, that was missing before. That gives it some depth. I also need to, and I think these are shoulder pauldrons maybe, but those need a little light. I just took the pink, and that's again just a creature caster regular pink. We're trying to use a few of the new regular colors as well as the transparents. Hey Michael, how's it going? How's it going? Well, we've been hammering away at a few of the Baratheons here, but I figure what I do is do initial washes and stuff as we compare the contrast paints to the ProAcryl Transparents, and then I just, okay, here let's maybe take Renly the rest of the way and see if we can't either finish him or get him a fair amount of the way done. So I'll try and do another live stream and work on, let's see, well, we got Alistair and we've got Shira Okay, let's go into some of this brighter blue here. Again, that's that mix of contrast with regular paints. Oh, it's still recovery mode from Gen Con, although there's really not much time to really do any kind of recovering, unfortunately. That was not the easiest schedule in the world, and all of us that were all together, we're still just trying to piece ourselves back together again. Now let's see if I can't do a little spread of a few little lights like that, almost to indicate maybe some of the environment around it is reflecting into the armor. Here, let's get some lights there. So hopefully you've been having success with your recent painting projects too, because we all have those going on. Alright, let's do a mix of the purple. That's the purple and, oh, what is that? The snakebite leather. I'm gonna do some more reflected light here underneath these, right here. Just need to get a little bit of water in there, get that flowing. Yeah, see that? Just here, we'll do another little one of our linear things here. I need to get that a little bit lighter. There we are. And then a little more water there. Yeah, we were missing something right along there. So it's a way to make that have a little more of a sparkle to it, but without going to the extreme of the pure sky earth, non-metallic. It's like you can go sort of the way to sky, and then you just have to sort of stop short. Right, metal still is going to reflect the sky color no matter what you do. Metals to some degree have a sky earth look to them. That's kind of inevitable. Here, let's get more of a light here. And I think you'll have fun. Well, yeah, we both know that you'll have fun with the Song Ice and Fire midis, but I think this screwing around with the mixing of the contrast paints and such with the regular paints, it gives them that almost like they are oil painted. This gives them a little extra depth. Yeah, here, there's not much shape in there. I'm going to see what happens with some purple here. Now that's looking for some of the, oh, that's the contrast blue right there. So we'll just go with that. Because why not? There's other, well, let's just say there's a lot of different Song of Ice and Fire stuff that I'm working on all at the same time. There is a whole bunch of it. As we talked about earlier, there's going to be some true metallic metals, right? The TMM, we're going to be doing that with some of the green stuff. World and, well, Creature Caster metallics, and even a little bit of the Vallejo metal medium. It's going to be another test because there's a lot of these different products coming out. And it seems like, and I guess it's typical, there is no one product that does absolutely everything. It usually requires a mix. While I work mostly with the Reaper paints, well, sometimes companies make something that's a little bit different. Just has a slightly different property. Well, and then it's helpful. So see, I'm gonna carry this line down onto the other side piece here. It makes no sense for it just to magically be up here and then not on this section. I also need to add a little bit more dark in some places up here. We've been doing a lot with the light and a lot with the mid-tone, but now I'm going to see if I can't work in some darks here. Like that. On the face. Just going to see if I can't. So I don't want to outline it, but I do want to. Just again some cleanup work that has to be done. Well, again, there's this double armor that just kind of to everything here. It seems like there's 2 layers of armor everywhere, which is interesting. So again, we're doing another one of these highlight things right here. Let's double down on that a bit. Again, we're doing some more of that texturizing here. And that's a little bit of freehand pattern there. I think I saw, just according to what I saw on the card art there, that was more of a, this is more of a gold right here. Oh, let's get some light along this edge. If we want that to be, we certainly want that to be more intensely highlighted than the cloth around it, so that it actually registers as metal. Speaking of more highlights, some more right in there. Let's see, what is it, June 15th when I first got the contrast paint, so it's really hasn't even been 2 months yet. Like I said, for my next army painting series, series 11, that's oils. But I also have a Baratheon series that's going to start, and that'll be for the patrons. Seems like the NCUs and the characters and such, they end up being more for the live videos like this to kind of get people introduced to it. Because that's pretty much the main feature on the Patreon page. I really love my units, and the Patreon page really helps keep that going. So we're breaking up the shapes here a little bit. Still thinking of that linear stuff here. Let's see if I can't get some of this sky blue once again. Onto the front of this armor here. A little more of the blue here. Yeah, we need some right there. And let's compare. So, like I said, this was our first set of just washes here. And I was doing this to see how near is this to something along the lines of what people do with the contrast paints, and it was really, really similar. But there is your difference in development. So this was just some really quick sort of glazes right here with that, and then we've mixed the contrast paint together, and the ProAcryl Transparents together with the regular opaque paints, and you can see we filled in a lot more of the detail. We also, on our Sculpey base here, we've added some of that nifty freehand stuff. Yeah, let's throw a little more of the transparent black out here, and we'll play with the base some more. Now, this is the one thing I do notice, that with those, the transparent paints, the paint kind of wants to just shoot out that lid of the container when you close it. I'm going to see if I can't get some more black here around the... Yeah, that's what I wanted. As we did those initial glazes, that was the transparent black and brown mixed together. Initially I was going to go for kind of a black marble effect here. I may still do that when it comes time for the rest of the unit. Or the units themselves. Let's see, I think we can add in a touch of that in here too. Yeah, we need to strengthen those areas. Here, let's also add a little bit of separation right in there. And then we'll add a little bit of dark in there. Let's do some on the hair also. Maybe even on some parts of the armor itself and the scabbard. Yeah, let's get some few little shadows here on the scabbard. Some orange. Oh yeah, this is some of the orange transparent. Let's see what happens here. Right on there. So wow, that was been sitting out there a couple hours waiting to be used, and it still works. I do want to get some of that orange over here into my yellows though on the robe. We got some greens going, but now I want to go the opposite direction here, a little bit warmer. There. Even into that. Also here. So you can see we're getting just this, some parts of the yellow almost have a greenish look to them, and other parts have this kind of an orange look. You're going to let some of that get into the hair. My reflections here, maybe some of that orange works its way into that. And that is the transparent orange. That's the monument stuff. I'm going to work more into the, it's more of a tunic type thing right there. Yeah, a little separation there never hurts. So I guess if you're not already a subscriber, you probably are, because you probably got the notification for this. But if you're not a subscriber, you do the subscribe, and I guess you click on the bell, and that's what gets you the notifications of these, because there will be more of these, because we have more of the new Baratheon heroes to do. Oh, where is she? Ah, here she is. So Shira will be working on her also. This again was just the contrast paint and some of the creature caster stuff for those initial glazes. Here we have too much of a difference here. It's not really making a whole lot of sense. I'm going to take some of this black, we're going to mix it with this blue, some of the purple here. We're knocking this down. Because they have this dark line here that goes, and there's just light right here. That doesn't make much sense. That's not making much sense to me. So I either have to kill Yeah, that made a little more sense there, just altering that shape. And we also need some kind of reflected light here too. And I see I've got to get something on the sword hilt right here on the handle. There's something to distinguish that from the armor on his hand. Now let's see what happens with the pink and the orange. Speaking of the sword hilt, right in here. And I'm going to... Okay, so this is the thing we have not put out at all yet, is this titanium white. So I'm just going to throw it somewhere here, right there. Because remember, that's something I always say, you save that white till your very end. That's your heavy hitter there. Might as well save that till the end. So let's do some bright highlights here now. Some really bright highlights. Again, along here, the edge of the armor. Let's do our little line of highlights here along the arm. Yep, we need something right here. See how that's all, it's sort of a connect the dots kind of a thing, and it works its way down. And as I've mentioned before, the creature caster paints, they really cover very heavily, so you have to be sort of judicious when you're working with these. Because unlike, say, some of the Reaper paints that I use, where I can sort of count on a little bit of translucency, it's not the nature of the creature caster paints. That's why I wanted to see what mixing the transparents would do with the regular creature caster paints. So we'll get just a few more highlights on here. I see I need some over here, yeah, on the sides. Yeah, oh, this one really, I need a couple of them here too. I don't know if you can see it. So right here, can you see that? I need that one, just a touch there. And now, one right here. Oh geez, we definitely need one here. And maybe we'll also hit a few on the scabbard right here. This is, again, what's going to separate this from the cloth. Those sterner highlights there, the sharper highlights. Like so. Like maybe in these upper reaches here, take some of that white, mix it in with my yellow. And again, we're trying to get that fabric texture, something I really haven't done before. So it's something different. Do that over here too. So that's why we're doing this little dot pattern type thing. All along here there's a little bit of freehand that we established a while ago. Yeah, let's lighten that up too. So I'm going to take my other brushes here. We'll Get some lighter colors too on our rocks and such here. Even though I think I might get hit with the weathering powders too at a certain stage here. Let's just hit some of these rocks. And I can always grab some of my, that's that transparent black. So one thing I can see with the transparent paints is that they kind of look one way, but they paint another. Remember the blue that in the container looks such more like a reddish blue, but when you actually use it, it was more like the contrast Achillean green, where it was a more greenish blue. That's really weird. And the brown, just the outside of the container, when you saw it, it looked, for whatever reason, like a very different brown. And then as I worked with it, it was all of a sudden like a, geez, it was more like a reddish brown, almost like a burnt sienna by comparison, and I was expecting maybe a dark umber. So that's just something to keep in mind. It's neither here nor there. It's not a positive or negative. It's just an observation. Just an observation. Oh, thanks, Michael. Much appreciated. Yeah, it's hard to believe that, good grief, as of, oh man, I think 6 o'clock tonight, this was a unprimed figure just sitting on a piece of Sculpey, along with all the other ones, which, oh, that needs some reflected light down there. Oh yeah, it needs some over here too. Yeah, oh yeah, we need some in there. These are the kind of things that you just, when you reach a certain stage, then you start to say, okay, let's up something here as far as the highlights, or let's knock something down. And let's refine that edge a little more. Okay, now as it draws towards 5 o'clock in the morning for me, so that I don't fall over, what I will do is I'll take some pictures of this guy. We'll make a little opening screen for him. Yeah, I think, oh gosh, what was it someone did? So a couple of people did with the contrast paints. They took maybe shoulder pads or just like bases or whatever, and they just said, okay, here is the Basilicum Gray, here is the, oh gosh, like the Black Templars, here's Snakebite Leather, something like that with the Creature Caster things. That couldn't hurt either. That certainly couldn't hurt. But this was a fun experiment here, so like I said, yeah, I'm trying to make the marble look more black by what I'm doing here. So this is, I think you can see how that's a little bit lighter there. So by default, the marble gets, well, the marble or whatever that surface is just gets a little bit darker by making everything else here lighter. Speaking of that color comparison, that's why we need to get some sleep. That is why we could definitely use a little bit of sleep. But so there's your Renly here. Ah, that's better. There's your Renly Baratheon. So thanks again to Mike, Brian, Justin, and all the way up to Sherpies Models and Aquatics. Thanks again for hanging out. It's appreciated. So I will see you guys on the next one a little bit later this week. Thanks again. Bye.